Hey everybody, we got something special for you. This is a two-part show. We're going to play 20 questions with our own Tony Dudzik, Wonderhead-Superbrain guitar encyclopedia. And so this is part one of that series.
Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon Wong Pickups.
Hey, this is me, Todd Novak. We are super happy that you are listening to our show, the Guitar Knobs podcast.
That's right.
That's right. Where we typically will focus on boutique builders and makers of fine guitar gear from around the country and even the world sometimes. Tonight, we've got an episode where we're going to focus on a particular thing that was built called Tony's brain.
That's right.
And,
it's a very scary place.
Yeah. So this one is 20 questions with Tony. One of the reasons that Tony's on the show, if you have listened in the past, is he knows a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Useless information.
It's not useless to us. So we decided, hey, you know what? Let's pick his brain a little bit. Now we're gonna do 20 questions, and some of these questions are hopefully pretty stimulating, and there's probably a couple in there that are kind of maybe ridiculous. You'll
cut the ones out that.
Yeah, I might cut. So
you will cut nothing out, or I'm walking out the door right now.
So, anyways, we hope that you enjoy this particular episode, and I will prompt this by saying, at the end of this, make sure you start sending us some questions that we can answer too. We can answer. We can throw them by Tony, and maybe he can.
And don't forget Jared.
And Jared.
The only questions asked that are dumb are the ones not asked.
That's very good, Jared.
Very profound.
That's right.
Well done. We want to do a quick shout out to Rode Microphones for providing our equipment to record on. We are grateful for them, and they make some mighty fine gear.
Procasters.
Yes, sir.
And I particularly like the articulating arms.
The articulating arms. That's
You're moving it right now, but I can't hear it.
You can't hear a damn thing.
I also want to point out really quickly, a long time ago when we first started this, I had never done this kind of thing before. I just went for it and started doing it. There was something that I was doing that a friend of mine seemed to, he uncovered this comment from several years ago. I don't know what he was fishing for or why, but someone left a comment that I kept smacking my lips.
That's right. I remember that episode.
And well, he said, hey, look, I really love the show. However, it is borderline intolerable to listen to because I kept going, right? Yeah. So I'm only leaving that one in there because after that, I actually changed the way that I talk on a microphone.
Wow.
I did. And, occasionally we're human and maybe one might fall in there every now and again, but
speak for yourself.
Yeah, it's mostly other people. So, anyways, my point is that comment was really valuable to me personally because I was investing so much into the show. I wanted it to succeed. And if you have questions or comments that you think might help our show or prevent you from quitting listening, please share
don't leave.
Yeah, we value our listeners.
And no, I'm not going to leave the show.
No, I appreciate that, Jared.
Just in case somebody asks.
I also wanted to throw out that I think recently I've gotten a lot of feedback sent to us from a handful of people in our audience that are pretty active in our group, and they're patrons and I guess they're patrons, not Patreons. They're patrons. Just sharing a word about their world. It made such an impact on us.
Oh yeah, those were great. I mean,
it means a lot to us.
I think in both cases, people were having really kind of bad days, and they got something in their mailbox for. And that kind of stuff, and then listening to the things, But we enjoy hearing things like that too because it does make a difference.
It really does, and it's appreciated. And it doesn't matter how big or small it is. It's just, knowing that you guys are out there, it's good to know. So
thank you.
Without further ado, Jared, what happened in your music world this week?
I tell you what happened. I got on the phone and I called my good old buddy Tony, and I says,
"That's
Tony,
me.
That's right. This Tony right here in the thing. I said, Tony, let's order a neck for this." Oh. That sounded pretty good, but we could have probably done that. A Jazzmaster neck. Now, I bought a Jazzmaster neck overseas. It didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. It wasn't what I was looking for. So I returned it, and I called on the phone to Tony, and I said, "Okay, let's get that neck." And I thought it was just going to be a real quick, "Okay, well, I'll submit the order and let her know." I mean, I know about necks enough to get me in trouble, but I soon realized that I should have called Tony a little more prepared because of the umpteenth million specifications that you need to submit along with the order.
Well, that's one of the blessings and dangers of customized or ordering customized parts is, there's a lot that goes into it. Yeah. But go ahead with your story.
And thank God we're friends, because I don't think anybody else would put up with the asinine questions I had. and just babble about all these specifications. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I just want it I want it to feel like a 91 strap plus neck, and I want it to have the curve of a 59 and blah blah blah. All these, I mean, guys, just go to the guitar shop and try out guitars. It was fun after it was done. I look back
really
on it,
leading us up to like this bad thing. They're saying it was fun.
It was fun.
Well, it takes time.
It takes a lot of time.
Because you have to go specification by, fret wire, shape, thickness, nut width. I mean, there's the whole
radius.
Yeah.
All this stuff. It was mind-boggling to me because I wasn't totally prepared, but I did have enough information of what I wanted to actually, get it done. And I have full confidence it's going to be what I want. I can't wait to get this thing because
it's going to be a cool neck. It's going to be a nice neck. There's a company out in Washington State that does custom work. They've made a couple of necks for me, and of course, you wanted binding and blocks, which adds to the cost as well as the complexity.
Right.
And,
otherwise, I would have just ordered something off of the place down in Texas. All parts. Yeah. So, it would have been as easy as that because they make great necks too. Anyway, that's pretty much what went on in my guitar world this past week.
Cool. Tony?
Well, in this third and final installment on the Ventures Jazz Master Project, I just, we've talked about it over the last couple of episodes. I put one together. Now, the neck that I got from overseas that had dots blocks and binding, although there were some things that were somewhat wrong with it, it still turned out to be a good neck, and that's what I used on this project. The one very dissatisfying part of it was, the nut that came with it was just really bad, and the slots were cut too narrow. And the reason is that with the binding, they made the nut fit inside of the binding, which made the strings closer in. So a very good friend of mine, Sean Bowers, opened up a new guitar repair shop here in Columbus, and it's called the Guitar Repair Company. Surprisingly, no one has ever used that domain name, so that's one of the reasons he chose that.
Wow!
But
so basic.
He's always done really good work for me, and I'm capable of cutting a nut, and it's adequate. But I'm going to tell you, on any special instrument or anything that you really want to play well, you have to take it somewhere. Someone who does this stuff day in, day out, can dress the frets, can clean up the binding, can make a nut that actually works. And he did all of that. He did more work than he probably should have, but I'm extremely happy with the end product now. It plays great.
From what I saw, buddy, he takes a lot of pride in his work, especially on that nut.
I mean, I know it's not just for me because I've seen him do work for other people, and he really does go into it. He spends time, but the whole thing came together really nicely. Jared, your pickups, those sound great. The only thing I've got on tap is to actually put a coil tap switch in it, so we can split the pickups down to more of a.
It's a very thick sound.
Yeah, it sounds great as it stands, but if you want a true jazz master sound, I think that will probably take care of the issue. That was my week.
Excellent.
Todd?
I spent some time visiting my friend Chase Gullett of Chasing Vintage Guitars.
Hey,
Chase.
He was making some refinements on his paint booth. He offered to set up my Tele Master Blaster thing.
Whatever you want to call it. Jazzcaster, Tele Master.
Yeah, I still don't have a name for it. Sorry. So what we did, we have it rattle can gold right now, which is kind of cool.
That's going to be the undercoat?
That's the undercoat.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was kind of fun seeing that start to come together. And now I'm also just kind of starting to look for different kinds of knobs to put on it, because I like mixing up the knobs a little bit, and
you come down to my shop. I've got a whole drawer full of goofy stuff.
I want to. So next up is getting the right kind of black that we want on there. I'm looking for a pretty specific finish, and we're going to do a black headstock on it too. So,
ooh.
Yeah, it's going to be cool.
That's going to be quite nice.
Mm-hmm. So that's what it was.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Tony, are you ready?
I guess ready.
I'm really bummed I don't have a 4 on the floor today. I've got a couple requests.
I'll give you another 4.
But I can't.
I'll give you a 4 on the floor.
I've gotten so many new pedals in the past few months. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I've only gotten one new pedal in the last year.
Well, Todd's gotten me.
You're kind of going crazy buying pedals, man. I love it.
It's because of you. I mean, you opened me up to, different sounds and different tones, and
yes, Jared is the driving force of the Mutron.
Yeah,
that's
price increases.
I'm like your personal Bette Midler.
Okay,
or something, I guess. No,
Did I ever tell you you're my hero?
Anyways, so what we're really here to do is pick Tony's brain, not for just pure entertainment, because honestly, he really does know an exceptional amount about guitars and the history and the business. And I think that's really interesting. Every time I do the show, I'm just convinced I know less. And
I've forgotten more than you'll ever know, Sonny.
Yeah, so
right.
I figure, hey, this would be great to share with everybody out there. So,
oh yeah,
fire away.
Yes.
Who's up?
Okay. Question number one. Jared, I'll give you number 1.
All right, man. I got a question for you, old buddy.
Okay. Wait, we already know that. We've established that this is the 20 questions. There's no setup necessary.
I'm like an old cassette tape, man. You just have to listen to everything. So why are the fretboards so glossy? Why did they do that?
That's actually a really good question and an interesting question. In some cases, people really hate that. I mean, it's comparable to like a fender neck, like a maple fender board that has finish on it.
A little more glossier though. I've never seen a fretboard so glossy in my life.
It's the type of finish that they used back then. It's not a true lacquer. It's more of a catalyzed varnish, I guess you would say, and that's what they used over the years. So it seems to be a bit thicker, a little more plasticky.
And maybe the newer models that I've seen out there too are trying to emulate that old look, and they come out super shiny as well.
Interestingly, in the late 50s, those the models that they made then did not have finish on it. So I think somewhere around the early 60s is when they decided, hey, well, we got everything together. Let's just shoot the whole guitar.
Right.
And so it's one of those things you either love or you hate.
Does it do anything from a tonal standpoint? Does it contribute to the chiminess of a Rickenbacker?
I don't think so. Okay. I think that's just inherent to the type of wood, which is mostly maple or a maple and walnut combination that they used, and the pickups, of course. So they're generally very bright. Maple. Well, not maple. What a maple. But But it's, I think, it's a whole combination, and all maple guitar is going to be brighter no matter what. But I don't know if finishing the fingerboard really makes any difference on a Fender.
It does feel a little bit odd.
It feels different.
Yeah, which is weird because you're really not touching the actual fingerboard so much as the strings.
Yeah.
If you're...
Unless you have a very heavy left hand or right hand.
Yeah, but there is a definite, when you pick it up, it's like, whoa, this feels very different.
But I mean, do you notice a difference if you're playing a maple board Fender?
Yeah.
Versus a rosewood Fender?
Yeah, there is... You can tell your fingers are touching it, but you wouldn't think it's so pronounced. Like if you're used to a sealed fingerboard, like a maple fingerboard, the difference between that and a rosewood or a dark wood unfinished whatever kind of board does feel different. But the difference between that sealed maple board and the Rick is like. You should, in theory, you really shouldn't be able to tell that much difference. But man, it does feel different.
Well, I think that, honestly, I think the bigger difference between Rickenbackers and most other guitars, especially earlier ones, is the nut spacing, because they have very narrow nuts on.
Me no likey.
And a lot of people don't, and that's why some of the newer models, like it started with the with the Tom Petty 660 12 string.
Yeah.
They actually widened it to 1 3/4 inches versus I think the standard is 1.65 instead of 1.75. So the strings are pretty tight, especially on a 12 string.
Oh, yes.
And now all the regular 660s and at least one model of the, it's the I think they call it a 1998 or 1997 model. The Rose Morse model has that wider nut width as well. So that's immediately, if you pick up a Rickenbacker, compare it to, a Fender or Gibson, it just feels, especially if you have larger hands.
So basically they said it's all together. Let's spray the whole thing. So they spray the front. Did they have the wherewithal to scrape the finish off of the frets?
No.
So when you first got it,
no,
you would string it up and then you were playing. You're like, what's this stuff coming off the frets?
Yeah,
the finish was coming off the frets.
That's a real problem. I mean, I think they may level things out a little bit, and that by that nature. But I've had some Ricks that it's so built up, it's almost like gluing the frets in place. Yeah, it's
okay.
Not the
Great
best of all things.
question, Jared.
There you go. He hit it out of the ballpark.
All right.
We're going down the road.
Okay, time for me. Question number 2, Tony. So Tony, I've got a question for you. What's up with custom with a K amps?
Custom with a K.
And let me clarify that. When I say what's up with it, when we look at them, I'm sure we've all seen
Tuck and Roll.
The Tuck and Roll,
Of
which
course.
Tuck and Roll is, for those who don't know what Tuck and Roll is, it's vinyl that has a stitching that makes it look like puffy little pillows all over the amp.
You can actually sleep on a custom amp.
I bet you could.
I think they put that
I might have.
Yeah.
in case you drop it while you're carrying it, it hits your foot. It won't hurt so bad.
Yeah. So the reason that I ask what's up with that is because they look so cool.
They do.
When we were in Chicago, we went to Rock and Roll Vintage.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I mean, the minute we walk in the door, there were like 3
The custom section.
section. And it's impossible not to go like, that's so cool.
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
But why do we rarely see them being played?
Well,
and we don't have to bash anything, but I'm just what's the genesis behind that whole thing?
I mean, in my opinion, they never were really great sounding amplifiers. I think for the time they may have been relatively loud and pretty much on the clean side. Mm-hmm. I think CCR, John Fogerty played them. Probably a couple of other bands of the time. And I think they were just maybe a less expensive alternative to what Fender was putting out at the time. certainly some of the other overseas companies. But yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about the company, but they were found, I think they were in Chanute, Kansas. I think that's how you say it. And they just built all these things, and that was their trademark, was the kind of we call it tuck and roll, but it's basically like a padded vinyl covering on it.
Yeah, but that aesthetic was really, really popular in the 70s.
Yeah, totally.
I'm curious to know, it'd be interesting if anybody was heavily modding them or making them better or completely ripping out the guts and keeping the chassis and putting new stuff.
I don't know. I mean,
Marshall guts in it.
Too cool. I mean, I saw a gold one, a gold tuck and roll. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, they reissued them. I don't know if it was. I doubt it was the same company. Yeah. Somebody bought the name.
Yeah,
they reissued some. They had some tube ones. Most of them were solid state, and I mean, they were okay. I mean, but if from the same era, if I had to pick a lower priced amp, and actually a lot of players at the time did, I would pick a Trainer out of Canada.
Yeah,
those things were just. I've owned several Trainers over the years, and my God, are they great amplifiers?
They still that's the two things you always hear. I own several Trainers, and they are amazing. They are just really, really amazing.
I think we might have talked about this back when my very first episode.
May have,
the rumor mill or whatever. I think it's been documented. Pete Trainer, who built these things, would take them to the top of the warehouse, which was 2 or 3 stories, drop it, and then plug it back in. That was the test. If you could drop it off that and have it.
I heard that about Bogner.
Well, it could be. It could be too. But anyways,
maybe they were having a drop off or something.
Back to customs.
Drop off.
I wanted to add that they actually had weird speaker configurations.
That's
as
true
well.
too.
Yeah,
they had the horn or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Now, my dad's band in the early 70s, really early 70s, they had a custom PA system.
Yeah.
And I have 6 or 7 hours of reel-to-reel recordings of their band playing through, and they sang through. They had 4 guys singing through a custom PA system, and that thing sounded great.
Yeah. Well, if you're only running Vokes through it, yeah, that's it. I mean,
that's what they were.
And that's how Peavy got started at that same time. His big foray was into sound reinforcement. Yeah. Even Leo Fender back in the in the 40s, that was his how he got into
lap steels too, right?
Yeah.
Well,
anything that you can plug in, Tommy. Well, that was a great question, Todd. Jared, what's your next question for Tony?
Yeah, good job, Todd. Who made the pickups on the Mosswright guitars?
On Mosswrights?
Mosswrights, yeah. Mosswrights.
Mose.
I've repaired. Let me
give me a preface.
A little preface. I've repaired a lot of these. I've rebuilt these, and they were kind of crudely made, which is a nice way to put it. I mean, you got car bondo that you use for, body shaping and body repair on cars.
Body filler.
Legitimately, you're not just like sort of.
No,
that's fluffing the conversation.
That is real bondo. It's the real thing. I know what it smells like. When you sand it, it's got, bondo's got that specific smell.
No,
but they sound great though. I got to tell you, when they're put together right, and when they're in that guitar, they got that sound.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming that was Semi Mosley who ran the company, and I'm not sure why he chose the products he chose. Probably other than that's what was available. I mean, he started building stuff in the 50s. Yeah. And you couldn't just run down to the corner store and say, give me 80 magnets and some bobbins, and give me a spool of wire. I mean, I think that he probably figured, well, geez, if I seal the back of these things, maybe it'll be quieter. I can't answer that completely, but
useless.
I'm not a pickup guy, but I will tell you that Curtis Novak is making a really good replica of the Mosswright pickups.
Yeah.
So that's something you can check out.
Knowing him, they're built really well.
Well, he builds everything as it was. I mean, he's taken enough of those things apart, I'm sure,
So he's buying the Bondo and cutting the bobbins out of this clear plastic.
I don't know if he's doing the Bondo thing or not.
I'm willing to bet he's making them really well.
Yeah.
I ought to find that out.
Yeah. Well, we'll get in touch with them and say, hey, are you using Bondo like the real ones?
That's great. So...
Nice. That was such a good segue.
I'm just going to go for weird segues on this show.
Thanks, Tony.
Number 3, which is a follow-up. Actually, this is question number 4. We're already at number 4. The second part of this. Why are Mosswrights so expensive? Asterisks, because all we hear about of them is that they play like garbage. And that's coming from the actual Ventures themselves, who we met at the guitar show, who wanted to tell us all about why Mosswrights were terrible guitars and how they just really wanted the Fenders. This is very interesting. So obviously, I would be biased towards a Mosswright because of Johnny Ramone.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, that's a different. Yeah, that's a little different animal from the Ventures model. But go ahead.
Yes, it is. But it's just odd that the demand for those and the price is so crazy. Also with the knockoffs as well, or at least, I don't know if you'd call them knockoffs, but like the Univox models
Flyer,
and stuff like that. And Dan Electro actually just released a whole series of Mosswright.
Yeah.
You know,
and then there's the Wilson brothers that they issued one. There's Mosswright of California. I think that is still a separate company. So there are people that are.
So back to my original super short question.
Why? Okay. Well, I think why they cost so much is there were so few of them actually made.
Yeah.
That really played into it. And I mean, the one I've played some good ones. I've played some bad ones. I think a lot of it is someone had approached Sammy Mosley and said, I kind of like Strats, but I want something different. And so he took a Strat and flipped it upside down, traced it, and that became the basic body shape. So what was the upper horn on a Strat is now the lower horn. So that's why it kind of shifted everything around that way. But yeah, I mean, a lot of those instruments are pretty crudely made. I mean, even after Mosswright folded, I think there was a brand called Gospel that he continued with. And, you know, they were almost like, you know, carryovers from that time in the 50s and even into the 60s, that things were, it was almost pre-mass production, a lot more hand-built things. Even if you look at some of the old Carvin, the original Carvin series, and any of even the Bigsby's and things like that, they're pretty crude instruments.
Yeah.
Even some of the early Rickenbackers are pretty crude. So I think it's a product of the times. They're just, you know, they look cool as hell, but you know, I think if I needed a guitar to play that looked like a Mosswright, I'd probably buy one of the reissues, or something. Yeah,
and those are pretty cheap to pick up.
Oh yeah. The Eastwood makes one. You know, there's the Univox High Flyers in the 70s. There's you know, all sorts of things.
I always see one or two of those at the shows, and every time I'm tempted to grab one. The Univox ones.
Just watch for the truss rods.
Good to know. Good to know. All right. Excellent.
All right.
Jared.
My turn.
Jared, it's your turn.
My turn.
Do you have a question for me, Jared?
Listen, I have a question. What do you think the best tuner ever made is, and why? Like,
wow.
And that's your personal opinion.
You mean tuning machine?
Tuning machine. Yes.
Oh, tuning machine. I thought you meant.
When you say tuners, you know, you assume tuning machines.
Yes, but he said tuner.
Tuner.
I'm here to help out. Your old Uncle Todd.
Wow, that is. I mean, there are actually a lot of good ones, and even old Cluzons are still pretty good.
Yeah.
And
I think if
Cluzon, a Cluzon tuner is one that you would see.
It's basically a stamped metal tuner that you would see on
an
enclosed
back,
with
the skinny lines on the
little
back.
Lines. They usually say Cluzon. They use them on Gibsons. They use them on like everything.
They're super thin and super cheap.
Yep. And they sound different than what, you know, we would, you know, everybody back when I was getting into music, you know, that was the first thing you changed. Guitar wouldn't stay in tune. Well, you got to put these Grovers or Schallers or whatever on. So if I had to pick, and I've done replacements, and I've actually gone back and taken some that were converted with sealed tuners and put them back to Cluzons because they sound better. But I think as a general rule, I like old Grovers.
Yeah.
I think that, they kind of set the standard. Really back in, I think they were making machines back in the 30s, really. But the ones that really come to mind are the ones that were really from the 50s and 60s. Yeah. And, there's some even into the late 60s, they call them milk bottle rotomatics.
I have a few sets of those, and a particular set, they were nickel at one time, and they came on my dad's 69 Dove. And gosh, man, that guitar's been in my life all my life. So, I mean, having those tuners, I understand why. I've never had to do anything to them except tune the knob.
Yeah,
turn the knob to tune the string.
I really do think that Grover set the standard for sealed tuners. And of course, now you can get, Schallers from Germany and Gotos from Japan and Korea.
They're good ones.
They're all maybe a step better or smoother than a stamped tuner. Mm-hmm. But there are some cases that I still prefer the sound of a stamped tuner.
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, I will go with Grover.
Excellent question, Jared.
Count.
Thank you, Tony. Next question to Tony.
Todd, what is it?
Is this NPR?
Why do people trash the new wide range pickups in the Fenders?
The reissues, you mean?
The reissues.
Well, the answer is actually pretty simple.
Okay.
And especially if you've ever taken one apart, one of the newer ones, it's essentially a standard humbucker that is been potted with, I don't know what it is, some sort of
soil.
some waxed cloth-ish kind of stuff around to fill in the gaps around the larger size of the wide range humbucker. I'm going to turn this over. Jared, you know the difference because you build really good wide range humbuckers right
Thank you. The difference is, the reason people trash them is because, they feel that Fender took, a shortcut, making that wide range humbucker a humbucker because of the parts. You threaded magnets are very expensive to make now. They no longer make the Kunify magnet, which is a bunched up word.
It's called an acronym.
Thank you.
Copper, which is...
It's been a long day. Copper.
CU.
It's a
nickel.
bunched up word.
Yep. It's a bunched up word. It's an acronym. And
is it from Akron?
It might be. But I could tell you something, they don't make any, but no one will make this material anymore.
So it's CUNIFE.
There's
copper, nickel, and Fe for iron for ferrite.
That's right. The new magnet now that replaces Kunify is Ferrico, and it's another bunched up word, which is an acronym.
Ferrite,
iron, cobalt. Yeah, it's machinable, as in threadable magnets. Because usually your Alnico magnets and other magnets are so hard, that stuff just shatters if you try to thread it. And when you have individual magnets as slugs instead of the steel slugs that Fender use now. All Fender uses now in the newer wide range is a bar magnet, and it's the same bar magnet you find in standard humbuckers.
Yeah, it's basically a standard humbucker underneath a wide range humbucker cover.
That's all it is. And not only that, they use 42 wire, and you have a much gauge, and you have a much lower output pickup.
Yeah.
Is 42 like a thick gauge string or a skinny gauge string?
42 American wire gauge. That's what
bigger the number, the thinner the string.
That's right. It's like hair, man.
Look at all we're learning.
It's crazy.
So a thinner wire, what does that do to your tone?
It's actually the same wire they used, but there's less wire because the bobbins they use are much smaller. So you have to put less wire on the bobbin because if you try to put, more wire on the bobbin like they did in the old days, it'll just run over. You don't have enough room. The old original wide range pickups were, 10.5K. They were hot. Whereas the new ones now are around
10.5K output.
That's right. And now they're 7.5K output instead.
That's like a standard. It's a standard.
It sounds like
humbucker.
it sounds like a PAF humbucker. And that's cool if that's your thing. But if you want the true 72 sound, you want to
gypped.
That's right.
Yeah.
You want to go
look,
with,
but you don't have the guts.
Yeah, there's a handful of boutique builders that build aftermarkets, like Seymour Duncan, Jason Lawler, myself, Mojo Tone makes one. Curtis Novak, and there's a company in the UK, the Creamery.
Oh yeah,
they make one as well. And they're all pretty good, and they're all slightly different too. Because
which one sounds best, Jared?
I gotta say mine because they all sound different. They have different recipes. They have different parts. These parts are not easy to find nowadays. They're very expensive to make. That's why Fender builds them the way they do now. And they advertise them as newly voiced. Well, yeah, because they don't want to invest the money in buying, all these parts for X amount of dollars. It's really expensive to do.
Yeah.
So turning over to the boutique builders, that's great for us, because if you really want that sound, you'll go to, one of us builders for that.
Awesome. Excellent.
Awesome question, Todd.
Thank you, sir. Back to you, Jared.
All right. There's something I want to do, and that is to ask a question. Here's another pickup question for you, bud.
Oh, God.
What is the absolute best sounding pickup configuration for your personal taste? Like your favorite pickup configuration?
Well, I think I'll probably go with like a Les Paul configuration, double humbucker.
Whoa.
I was not expecting that.
Me either.
Well, no, I'm just saying the configuration. I mean, if there's so many tools in the tool shed. I mean, you can, the standard Tele is fine, but there's something special about a Les Paul.
Say you're going to a show.
If I was going to a show and there's
4 guitars sitting there.
Yeah, I'd go with a Strat. No, I mean, I think even though I only have, I don't know, do I have 2, maybe 2 Les Pauls? They seem to be, I mean, they cover such a wide range of things. I mean, the ultimate tool in the shed is a Telecaster, because you can do just about anything with that. But the best combination in a Les Paul, and I've been told this is the same pickup configuration that Mr. Seymour Duncan likes in a Les Paul, is a Duncan JB in the bridge and either a Jazz or a 59 in the neck. And I've used that on so many different guitars. I just put another JB that was it was a Trembucker or Fender spacing in a buddy of mine, his Les Paul. And that one, really, the string spacing in the bridge position worked out better, I think, than a standard, because it's a little bit, you miss the outside strings a little bit with standard spacing, and it really brought this guitar back to life.
Interesting.
So, JB in the bridge, and either a Jazz or a 59 in the neck.
Excellent question, Jared.
Thank you.
All right. Question number 8 to Tony. Please spell.
Could you use that in a sentence?
Yeah, if Floyd Rose tremolos, the floating tremolos you see on a lot of, I guess, quote unquote, more metal-ish guitars, or
Locking
at least
nut.
Progressive guitars.
Yep.
If they're so bad, because there's a lot of talk on the internet about complaints about them. They're terrible. They're awful to work on, I think.
Oh yeah.
But why did every guitar in the 80s have one?
Well, I think it was obviously a trend in the 80s, but I mean, in the Floyd Rose, in defense of Floyd Rose, they were an improvement over what was kind of the original Fender vintage tremolo was notorious for dropping out of tune.
Right.
I think the musical style of the 80s with all the dive bombs and Eddie Van Halen goofy stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were really, at that time, there were Kahlers, there were Floyd Roses. And then there, obviously, as those became popular, there were tons of knockoffs.
Right. So maybe more accurately, a floating tremolo.
Yeah, I mean,
they're all floating.
They all float. I mean, if you set them up right, they all
Floyd
float.
Rose style tremolo.
The thing with the Floyds is they also incorporated a locking nut at the top. So the idea was, you stretch the strings, you set everything up, you lock it at the nut, you lock it at the bridge.
And there's probably a lot of people that don't know what a locking nut is, because they don't really come around too often anymore. But essentially, your nut.
I'll just go to music around.
Yeah, that's true. The nut that we're all familiar with, which is typically just a piece of bone or plastic or what have you. Yeah. With a groove and the strings go right over it. The locking nut was essentially like a U-shaped trough,
a hunk of metal with three pieces that literally used an Allen wrench to lock the strings down,
and a little block of metal. Then you essentially made a metal sandwich to quite literally just completely screw down your string.
Yeah, it's very complicated. It did solve some problems. It obviously created a lot of other problems for people that that really didn't know
what they were doing.
And to set one up is extremely difficult. That's why if you go to any guitar shop, there is always an extra charge to work on Floyds.
It's interesting too because my daughter actually asked me this the other day. She said, "Why can't you tune your guitar like I tune my violin?" Her violin, there's the big tuning pegs at the scroll, and then there's the fine tuning at the back, and that's essentially what those allows you to do with a locking nut. So I've locked it into G, and then you can, with that little tiny thing on the back,
fine tune it.
You can fine tune it when needed.
Yeah. So that was the idea, but there, in my opinion, there's something even better about playing guitar out of tune.
Agree.
It's a natural chorusing effect.
I'm pretty good at that.
I was at my buddy's guitar shop, and I was buying a guitar that had a Floyd Rose type thing going on, so I could play a certain song in a cover band. And I said, "Hey,
which song did you try to play?"
Let him go.
So, yeah. But the great song. Anyway, I said, let's tune this thing. We tune it, and then I said, wait a minute, I need this thing in drop D. And he goes, you have no idea. Jeez. And just kind of threw a fit because now you tell me. I just spent a half hour tuning the thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. I don't ever think that those will make a big comeback, but I could be wrong.
Look, a lot, if you're playing a shredder guitar and it's got a trem, that's pretty much still what's on it.
Yeah.
You got to set the intonation
but that's still
crazy.
That is reserved now rather than en masse.
Oh yeah.
For those specific needs.
Right.
Okay. There's another good one by Todd. Okay. Check. Jared.
All right. I have a question that is awesome for you because it's kind of personal. What music made you really want to play guitar?
Oh, that's easy.
What genre? What year was it?
He just said it was really easy. Now you're complicating it.
I want it to be complicated. I want you to read. I don't know.
Well, I grew up. In my formative years.
So let's be clear. There's no clarification on the need for it to be difficult. But if you can difficult it up,
please,
that would be great.
I'm gonna try to. Difficultize it.
Well, actually, I want to give the listeners out here an idea of who you are. So be specific.
Man,
all right.
He's tough. He's asking the tough questions tonight. Well, obviously, I was born in the 60s, and my sister was a little bit older than me, and so I grew up listening to the Beatles and stuff. In fact, the very first songbook that I learned to play guitar, I taught myself, was my uncle had this hit parade book from like 1964 or 65.
I had no idea they actually had those.
Oh yeah, I mean it had some Beatles songs. It had, I forget the rest of the people that were in there, but it was simple chord stuff, and you learned to play, rather than playing Kumbaya or whatever, or Michael rowed the boat ashore or all that fun stuff. So that's how I kind of taught myself. But I mean that was, my sister played stuff like that. I remember she got the single to Come Together, and boy, my parents hated that song. Oh my God, she'd play it on the thing, and what kind of music is this?
Right.
So it was, that would have been what, 1968, 69. But wow. I mean, beyond that, so the Beatles stuff was always big with me. I mean, I listened to the Who, the Stones, and all that, but then when 70s turned the corner, I mean, obviously there was so many bands in the early 70s that I'm still listen to a lot. Bands like Sweet and Kinks and even starting into the early days of Zeppelin and things like that. I think between 1965 and 1975, there was just that was probably the most incredible decade of music. So that also kind of explains my infatuation with Rickenbacker guitars, because I mean, I remember seeing pictures of the Beatles, and I said, "Oh my God, that's a cool guitar!" George Harrison playing the 12-string and John with his 325. So it was really cool. I that had the biggest influence on me.
Wow.
And I still gravitate towards that sound. I mean, I play Vox amplifiers because that's just the kind of thing that, that sounds right to me. Mm-hmm. It may not sound right to everybody, but I had a slew of Fenders and PVs and things throughout my, the 70s and 80s. And
what PV did you have?
Well, I had several. I think one of them was a Deuce.
Right.
And I probably had a classic 212. Okay. Those were, and actually the classic 212s are pretty good.
I think I had one of those.
Early PV.
Yeah.
I mean, mine had the phase thing on it.
Yeah, that's probably the Deuce.
Yeah, I think I had the Deuce.
And then I had, there's so many amps that I could kick myself for getting rid of. We had this music store up in Youngstown that had, everybody wanted to buy the new stuff, and so there was this pile of old stuff, and there was this old Fender amp ahead that we needed for our bass player. Well, it turns out it was a 61 Fender Bassman head, brown face. Somebody had spray painted the cream Tolex black, and but it was still a killer amp. And I think when the band broke up, we sold that off. That's one I wished I would have kept. That was a great one.
All right,
there you go.
Okay, roundabout way to your favorite band.
Beatles.
Okay, question number 10. We're halfway there, everyone. Whew. What is up with Parker guitars?
You like the Fly?
I like the Fly.
Oh gosh.
So
another guitar.
Qualifications for this question.
Okay.
That was a guitar that was wild and different at the time, is still very expensive, all things considered.
Yeah, I guess.
What was...
I think it was one of those solving a problem that did not exist guitars. I've played a couple. They were never really all that comfortable. I mean, they were thin. I mean, they was probably one of the thinnest electric guitars I think that I've played. A lot of them, I think, had the piezo kind of acoustic output on the bridge. I'm trying to think who played them. Probably Reeves Gabriels.
I don't even know who that is.
He played for Bowie and...
Oh, sorry.
You don't see many of them now.
No, but when they do come up, they hold their price.
Yeah. I mean, I think
it's as to who was buying them and why. Like, because I remember there was a explosion of it. It was like, everybody's got.
Well, I think because at the time when it came out,
they had some innovations with it.
It was the innovations. The shape was like nothing else.
Yeah.
I think the materials that they used on some of them, they might have been a carbon fiber body or something. Yeah, I mean, there was something, or at least one of the model lines. But
the headstock is very, very. So for those
minimalistic,
who maybe have not seen a Parker, specifically the Fly. The Fly put them on the map. It was called the Parker Fly, and it had everything was just exaggerated a little bit weirdly. It sort of was one of the first guitars that had come along that had really rethunk what a modern guitar should be. That was the first time I saw, I think, a guitar, and I was like, I think is different than every other guitar.
I think that's it. It was a very, very modern style.
Yeah.
Something, and it was unique. There still is nothing quite like it.
Yeah, and the headstock, essentially, it almost looks like there's not a headstock.
It's like a candy bar.
Yeah, there's like a bar that the tuning machine
like a hockey stick, but you're like, where'd the rest of the headstock go?
Yeah.
And I know that there are proprietary parts that you have to use to fix them. I think much like a Steinberger.
Like a Steinberger, yeah.
Curious.
Division of Gibson.
Yeah. Okay, so sort of a mystery answer on that one.
Yeah, that's that one. That one I can't. There's no accountant for taste.
Yeah. So to supplement that, anyone who wants to add a little bit to our Facebook group and tell us their thoughts on the Parker, specifically, I guess the Parker Fly, because that really kind of put them on the map.
Yeah.
Please do so. Love to hear your chatter about that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to get just like my stainless steel frets.
Yeah.
We love our Parkers.
Yes. Okay.
And we've reached the halfway point.
Hey, everybody. Hope you enjoyed part 1 of the 2-part series of 20 questions with Tony Dudzik. In the next episode, we will have shocking part 2. So be on the lookout for that.
Test 1, 2, 3.
My name's Jared. That was nice.
He doesn't care about my level.
He turns you off all the time.
I can see her.
Have you heard the last couple podcasts? You're like, it's like gone. You're not even on.
Yeah.
I know.
You're totally off.
Okay, ready?
It's not in my head right now. It left my brain.
I just blanked out.
You just blanked out. It's time for another question.
That's all the time for me.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.